to protecting the national security of the United States, to have that very agency turn you into a criminal. The emotional toll on you and your family of what's happened the last few years.
Well, I guess, first of all, it was a very depressing thing to have happen, that they would turn the capabilities that I built for them to do foreign detection of foreign threats, to have that turned on the people of the United States. That was an extremely depressing thing for me to see happen internally in NSA that was chartered for foreign intelligence, not domestic intelligence.
With Edward Snowden, he went directly to the news media from the start. Based on your experience, did he have another effective option?
By going to the House Intelligence Committees, I also attempted to see Chief Justice Rehnquist to try to address that issue to him. And I also visited the Department of Justice Inspector General's office after Obama came into office.
I mean, we tried to stay for the better part of 7 years inside the government, trying to get the government to recognize the unconstitutional illegal activity that they were doing and openly admit that, and devise new ways that would be constitutionally and legally acceptable to achieve the ends that they were really after.
Oversight that's given to the intelligence community is virtually non-existent from Congress. I mean, they're totally dependent because they have no way of really knowing what's happening inside the agencies that are involved unless they had people who would come forward and tell them, like me, for example. They would not know those things.
I was actually there seeing the same things he saw, but there was no faux legal kabuki dance to cover it as if it was approved.
Can you compare today's surveillance to John Poindexter's total information awareness, the outcry then, forcing ultimately the Bush administration to say it is shut down, we're ending total information awareness?
Well, here's how I viewed Poindexter's efforts. He was actually pushed out as a test, to test the waters in Congress to see how they would be receptive to something they were already doing.
Approved by the White House, NSA became the executive agent for a surveillance program, extraordinarily broad surveillance program that turned the United States of America effectively into the equivalent of foreign nation for dragnet electronic surveillance.
The acquisition isn't the search, the querying later on is the search. They can then keep it in their database and target after the fact by going back and conducting data mining searches afterward, in other words, to get the information that they couldn't target from the outset.
And there is another real problem. Unfortunately, the software will, once it takes in data, it will build profiles on everybody in that data. The purpose is to monitor, be able to monitor what people are doing. You build social networks for everybody. That then turns into the graph, and then you index all that data to that graph, which means you can pull out a community. That gives you an outline of the life of everybody in the community. And if you carry it over time from 2001 up, you have that 10 years worth of their life that you could lay out in a timeline. That involves anybody in the country. Even senators and House of Representatives, all of them.
He is, by all definitions, a classic whistleblower, and by all definitions, he exposed information in the public interest. And we're now finally having the debate that we've never had since 9/11.
NSA's charter, and it was a legitimate one, was to do foreign intelligence, and I was with that all the way, and I did the best I could in that job. Unfortunately, they took those programs that I built and turned them on you, and I'm sorry for that. I didn't intend that.
That process of building that information about everybody, getting total information, was already happening. And the question was, would it be acceptable to Congress? Because they were keeping it very closely held in Congress under the calling it a covert program. That would make it a process to find out what the reaction would be if they exposed to Congress what they were already doing.
All of the efforts we made just produced no change whatsoever. All it did was continue to get worse and expand.
So he did the right thing, do you think?
Yes.
The other piece of that,
I think he did, yeah.
You wouldn't criticize him for going public from the start because your experiences of trying to do it by the book didn't work.
In fact, I think he saw and read about what our experience was, and that helped, that was part of his decision making.
We failed.
Well, more than that, it was turned against them.
That's right.
The fact that they went through the proper channels, the Inspector General was the one who gave their names to the Justice Department for criminal prosecution under the Espionage Act. They were all targets of a federal criminal investigation, and Tom ended up being prosecuted.
Indict you on any number of things like they tried to do with us.
They didn't indict you, though.
they drafted an indictment, but they didn't actually do it because I found evidence of malicious prosecution, and they dropped it.
The very best of American ingenuity and inventiveness, creativity, had solved the major challenge problem NSA faced. How do you make sense of vast amounts of data, provide the information you need, okay, to protect the nation, while also protecting the fundamental rights that are enshrined in the Constitution? The government, in secret, decided willfully and deliberately that that was no longer necessary after 9/11.
It isn't just the billions of dollars, it's the failure to secure the nation. And people blinked and went on as though nothing happened.
Tom Drake then, though, faced espionage charges.
They
said
created
he
other charges.
had aided the enemy, etc. Ultimately, the case went away.
Those are all fabricated charges, yeah.
Hero or traitor for Edward Snowden? What do you think, hero or traitor? Or something else?
Certainly he performed a really great public service to begin with by exposing these programs and making the government, in a sense, publicly accountable for what they're doing. At least now we're going to have some kind of open discussion about that.
He's an American who was exposed to some incredible information regarding the deepest secrets of the United States government. And we're seeing the initial outlines and contours of a very systemic, very broad, a Leviathan surveillance state. And much of it is in violation of the fundamental basis for our own country. The Fourth Amendment, for all intents and purposes, was revoked after 9/11. So none of this surprises me.
We had an expression when we worked for the government. When the government wants something bad, they get it bad. And that's exactly what's happened.
He is, by all definitions, a classic whistleblower. And by all definitions, he exposed information in the public interest. And we're now finally having the debate that we've never had since 9/11.
By law, he fits the legal definition of a whistleblower. He is someone who exposed fraud, waste, abuse, and in his case, illegality. He had a reasonable belief that what he saw evidenced that, and based on the fact that PRISM violates 2 federal laws and the Fourth Amendment, he clearly fits the definition in that way. And he also said he was making the disclosures for the public good and because he wanted to have a debate. And again, in that sense, he's also a whistleblower. If there was going to be a label for him, that's what I would use. But again, I feel like trying to pigeonhole him into these dichotomous categories is not useful.
I believe he should be prosecuted in order. He should fall in line after the previous administration, the president, vice president, all the leaders of all the chiefs and deputies of the NSA, all of them that participate, all the people in the intelligence committees that approve this, they should all be prosecuted, and he should come after all of them.